Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of humanity's oldest and most fascinating ideas, magic. But we're not talking about pulling rabbits out of a hat here. We're actually going to explore the real-world systems people have used for centuries to classify it, all the way from a simple good versus evil to something that looks a lot like modern computer code.
So you've heard these terms a million times, right? Black magic, white magic. You see them in movies, you read them in books. But when you get down to it, the actual systems that practitioners use, well, they're way more complex and honestly more interesting than just a simple good versus evil kind of thing. So let's break it down.
To get our bearings, let's start with this foundational definition from the famous or infamous Aleister Crowley. Now, notice what it doesn't say. There's nothing in there about morality, right, or spirits, or spells. It's about one thing, causing change according to your will. That single idea, will, that's the engine that drives every single system we're about to look at.
All right, let's jump in with the classification everyone thinks they know, the moral axis. The classic white magic versus black magic. But I'll tell you what, the line separating these two is a whole lot blurrier than you might think.
See, the fundamental difference here isn't really about a specific spell or some secret ritual. It all, and I mean all, comes down to the why. What's the intent? Are you trying to do something helpful, something for the greater good? Or is it purely selfish, all about personal gain, no matter who gets hurt? That's the core distinction.
And listen to how the 19th century occultist Eliphas Levi put it. He doesn't just say black magic is evil. No, he frames it as a kind of psychological weapon, the art of inducing artificial mania, manipulating minds. He even calls it the science of poisoning. It just gives it this way more sinister, way more deliberate feel, doesn't it?
Okay, but intent is only half the story. The next big way to slice this pie has almost nothing to do with good or evil. Instead, it focuses entirely on the how. The methods, the complexity, and even where the practitioner believes their power comes from.
And this is a huge point of confusion, even for people who study this stuff. It's so tempting to think, oh, high must be good and low must be bad. But that completely misses the point. Remember, this whole distinction is about the how, not the why.
This table really lays it out perfectly. The easiest way to think about it is this. High magic is almost academic. It's complex, it's ceremonial, it usually happens indoors in a formal setting, and it draws on these really intricate systems like the Kabbalah. Low magic, on the other hand, is much more like a practical folk tradition. It's usually based on nature, using things like herbs and natural objects, and it's focused on more immediate, tangible results, like helping your crops grow or finding something you lost.
So we've got these neat little boxes, right? Black, white, high, low. But of course, the real world is messy, and not every tradition fits nicely into these dualities. And that's led a lot of thinkers to come up with more nuanced maps of the magical world.
For example, check out this really elegant three-tiered model from the occultist Franz Bardon. He didn't classify magic by morality, but by scale. I love this. Think of it like a camera lens. You start zoomed in on the natural world, the elements. Then you zoom out a bit to the level of human interactions. And then you zoom all the way out to see the grand cosmic laws of the entire universe.
Now, to navigate all these different scales of reality, many systems use these incredibly intricate visual models, these maps. This chart, for example, is a modern take on ancient systems like the Kabbalah, which use diagrams to literally map out the cosmos. And these aren't just pretty pictures. They're meant to be treated as cosmological roadmaps, like complex circuit diagrams of reality itself, helping the user navigate unseen forces.
And that brings us right up to the present day, which is where things get really wild. This is where these ancient ideas are starting to intersect with our most advanced technologies. Some people are starting to reframe magic, not as superstition, but as a kind of forgotten spiritual technology.
I mean, just think about this idea for a second. It's pretty mind-bending. The argument here is that the symbolic language of magic, all the sigils and incantations, is actually a deeply intuitive user interface for manipulating information. So if you believe our universe is basically made of data, then maybe a spell is a more natural way to program reality than a line of code.
This totally flips the script. In this view, a magical sigil is basically a desktop icon. An incantation, that's just a voice command to Siri. They both use symbolic language to execute a command and make something happen. The only real difference is the operating system they're running on.
And you might think this is all just abstract theory, but nope. There are people actually doing this.
It's a field called radionics, and it explicitly uses technology to perform magical operations. The devices are seen as structural links, tools you can tune, kind of like a radio dial, to a specific person or a place or a desired outcome. The goal is to let the practitioner send and direct energy right to that target.
And that really leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought to chew on. Think about it. We use technology every single day to influence the world at a distance. We use symbolic links like usernames and IP addresses to target our intentions when we send an email or post online. Are we just practicing a really refined form of magic? It's a question that completely blurs the line between the ancient and the modern, and it kind of challenges our whole definition of reality.